This is a short video about a new childhood measure called the Health and Learning Questionnaire, or HLQ, a proactive, holistic self-report screener for school-aged children that identifies learning challenges before they get too big. It was developed by the Center for School Success, a nonprofit education organization located in Lebanon, New Hampshire. The mission of the Center for School Success is to help children who struggle with learning achieve measurable success in school and in life. Research has shown that the two biggest influences on how a child thinks and acts are first family and second school. The purpose of the HLQ is to provide a holistic and preventative way to identify school-related predictors that can influence a child's health and well-being. For most children, both risk and protective factors are constantly at work. It's the interplay of these factors at any given time in a child's development that can impact his or her learning and health. A protective factor can be a skill, strength, resource, support, or coping strategy that can help a child be better able to deal with stressful events and lessen risk. While a risk factor can include a learning difficulty, anxiety, stress, minimal physical activity, poor sleep or nutrition habits, risk factors can make a child more likely to develop a disease or injury or contribute to poor performance. The ability to utilize protective factors to overcome risk factors leads to resilience and, consequently, better learning and health outcomes. For a long time, the connection between health and student performance in school was considered a unidirectional phenomenon. Children with poor health generally performed worse in school. However, studies are now showing that the interplay between school performance and health is actually bidirectional, which suggests that if a child experiences difficulty in school, it can negatively impact his or her health and well-being. At some point in time, for whatever reason, almost every student hits a wall or faces a challenge which can make them doubt whether or not they are smart. It's common for children who previously excelled in school to experience difficulty beginning in 4th and 5th grade. That's typically the time when the volume and complexity of schoolwork increases while teacher and school support decreases. Transitions from elementary to middle school or middle school to high school are also common times when children can hit a wall. The most successful and cost-effective way to reduce health and learning problems is to catch them early, or better yet, prevent them from developing in the first place. The HLQ has been developed as a preventative screener to identify the risk and protective factors that most impact the health and learning needs of school-aged children, 9 to 19. It's holistic, it's strength-based, cost-effective, easy to administer, easy to interpret, with results that can be shared with children and parents, and has multiple purposes, for example, early detection of learning challenges, the capacity to create a profile of strengths and challenges for an individual or a group. Let's take a closer look at the HLQ. It is administered online and can be completed in about 15 minutes. The holistic questionnaire comprised statements covering 4 zones: academic, social, psychological, and biological, and 18 related categories. Most statements have 4 response options: not like me, sometimes like me, often like me, or always like me. Some statements require a simple yes or no answer. The results are presented in a report that includes a child's response for each question, as well as a one-page summary which is intended to be shared with the child, his or her parents, other teachers, or healthcare provider. On each one-page summary, there is a key explaining how to interpret the chart. The purple section of the key serves as a reference for the overall HLQ preferred range score, which is 75% or higher. There is also a range for the risk and protective factors. Optimally, we would like to see a child having 25 or fewer risk factors and 55 or higher protective factors. The total of the 2 factors is roughly equal to the number of statements in the questionnaire. The information in the dark blue bar serves as a reminder that it can be helpful to compare a child's overall HLQ score to a particular zone score. I will explain more about that in a minute. Under the blue bar is the color-coded rubric. Basically, green is a very strong or strong skill, yellow is a variable skill, which means it could be influenced by context, and orange is a weak skill, while red is very weak. The HLQ has been derived from research and our experience at the Center for School Success regarding the most relevant interrelated factors for school-aged children's learning and health. There are 4 zones measured in the HLQ, starting with academic. As you will see, we have 8 categories in this zone, each represented by roughly 5 to 8 statements. For example, one of the statements that measures attention includes, "I daydream in class." A statement related to language, in this case receptive language, is, "People say words that I do not understand." For memory, one of the statements is, "I forget what I'm doing in the middle of things." Again, for each statement, the child has the following response choices: not like me, sometimes like me, often like me, or always like me. Graphomotor skill is related to a child's handwriting, their pace, legibility, and physical act of writing. The last 3 categories have been included because there has been a fair amount of research related to the role efficacy, resilience, and engagement play in school performance, and more recently, the concepts of grit and mindset. The second zone is social. The categories in this zone are related to belonging, connectedness, and bullying concerns. As you can see by the sample statements, they cover feeling a sense of belonging with families, peers, and school, as well as bullying concerns. I also want to point out that there are a number of statements that use a time perspective and ask children to report their experience in the past 30 days. It's been found that there are certain state-type statements that are more accurate when asked within a specific time frame. It also allows the questionnaire to be used as a pre-post measure and especially sensitive to factors that need immediate intervention, like bullying or depression. The next zone is psychological. As I just mentioned, you will see that many of the statements in this zone are framed with a time perspective of 30 days. In this zone, I want to point out the first category, hope and optimism, as we have found that it's a powerful indicator of a child's desire to persevere when things get tough, as well as a great strength to leverage when developing an intervention plan. I also want to point out that anxiety is one of the top categories that consistently rates weak for many children. Anxiety develops from a complex set of risk factors, including genetics, brain chemistry, personality, and life events. According to the Youth Anxiety Center, every adult public health study on mental illness in this country has shown that anxiety in childhood predicts every mental health condition in adults. That's a pretty strong reason to address anxiety in school-aged children. Lastly is the biological zone. This zone includes a child's perception of his or her lifestyle choices, as well as factors directly connected to physical health. The lifestyle category includes lifestyle choices related to the amount of time spent on homework, on social media, or watching TV and videos. The physical health category includes a child's level of physical activity, quality and quantity of sleep, nutrition, and experiences of pain, for example, headache and stomachache. Let's take a look at this sample child's score more closely. Sebastian is in the 7th grade. At first glance, he has some academic challenges, no social concerns, some psychological concerns, and perhaps a concern worth investigating in the biological zone. Sebastian has an HLQ score of 61%, which is lower than the preferred range of 75%. His protective factors are just short of the preferred range, and risk factors are much higher than the threshold. In the academic zone, Sebastian reports having weaknesses in attention, memory, and graphomotor skills. He also reports to have weak organizational skills. However, his language skills and level of engagement are strong, while his sense of efficacy and perseverance and grit and mindset are variable, likely influenced by the task he's working on. It's not surprising then to note that his academic score is lower than his overall HLQ score, which suggests academics are impacting his health and well-being at this time. Sebastian's social zone is clearly an area of strength. Notice how high his social zone score is in comparison to his overall HLQ score. This suggests that he has some real strengths in this area that should be leveraged. The psychological zone has a couple of areas of strength, hope and optimism, and there are no anxiety concerns. These categories are likely offsetting the stress category, while the stress category could be impacting his life satisfaction and depression concerns. One question an adult might ask him is whether the way he responded to the statements connected to those 2 categories are only true during school. Finally, the biological zone suggests that Sebastian appropriately uses his time on social media and watching TV or videos. He also spends an appropriate amount of time on his homework. Sebastian's physical health score is variable. I want to take this opportunity to show you how you can use the report to take a closer look at how a child's responses to individual questions are contributing to the overall results. Upon closer look at his responses to the category statements, he reports having headaches and stomach aches at school, not having breakfast every morning, and being tired most of the day at school. Likely, these factors could be causing some of his attention, memory, or organizational weaknesses, or vice versa. The dynamic nature of child development means that even children properly screened and without problems still need continued surveillance for the potential development of new challenges during the school year. This is an example of how the HLQ can be used to measure change from year to year. In this case, the child completed the HLQ in the latter part of second grade. He had repeated a year, so he had just turned 8. There was no major concern the first time he completed the HLQ, though his mother had shared some challenges with his teacher she had noticed at the time. By October, the next year, there was quite a shift. The benefit of having a baseline allowed this young man's parents and teachers to immediately address areas that had slipped. It's also interesting to note that his parents reported the configuration of his classroom setting had changed from a small class with extra adult support to a larger class size with less support the following year. I have mentioned that the HLQ results can be shared with children, their parents, teachers, and/or clinicians. The summary chart can be particularly helpful as a foundation for building a child's awareness of his or her personal academic, social, psychological, and biological resources. This is important, as one of the key uses for the HLQ is to provide information that will allow children to take ownership of their own strengths and challenges so they can begin to advocate for what they need in order to stay healthy and to do their best learning. I've shown you how you might use the HLQ to look more closely at one child's experience. Let's take a look at how it could be used for a group of children. Here's a composite of children from a 4th grade class. While every child is different, there are some patterns, such as challenges in attention, weakness, or variability in language and memory, as well as overall strengths and engagement in this group. This sample is a cross-section of children from 3rd grade to 11th grade. Stress concerns seem to be evident in this sample. Also notice that overall, if a child has weaknesses in the academic or social zones, it's reflected in their psychological zone scores. The HLQ can provide data that can inform the need to alter instructional practices to meet the learning needs of a particular group of students. It can also be used as a pre-post measure when focusing on a particular skill, whether it's attention, mindset, or mindfulness. Some of the most common protective factors by category include efficacy and resilience, belonging and connectedness, perseverance and grit, life satisfaction, physical activity, and school engagement. While the most common risk factors are attention, anxiety, stress, fixed mindset, weak active working memory, weak graphomotor skill, a poor sense of self-efficacy and resilience, and depression. During the pilot study for the HLQ, 1,500 children completed a subset of HLQ statements as a screener prior to a well-child appointment. In addition, 200 children completed the full HLQ. Of interest might be the fact that the HLQ has accurately identified similar strengths and challenges detected by most psychological and educational testing measures used for special education eligibility. The HLQ does so more efficiently and cost-effectively. I hope you now have a better understanding of how the HLQ can be useful as an efficient, effective, and holistic screening measure in the school or healthcare setting. If you have any questions or would like to pilot the HLQ in your school, classroom, or clinic, please contact Leslie Williamson.